All set, Holly.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I would like to call the meeting to order. It's now 9:07 a.m. Thank you for your patience with us this morning. Stephanie, would you please take attendance?
Good morning, everyone. Adrienne Cochran. Well, she has not joined us yet. Andrea Comer.
Present.
Ellen McKitterick.
Present.
John Scott.
Here.
Mike will not be joining us today. And Holly Williams.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum.
Thank you. I would like to thank and welcome the members of the public this morning for joining us. And moving on to our first order of business, I would like to ask the committee for review of the April 28th, 2023 minutes and call to approve.
Motion to approve.
A second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. And now we're going to go to the Spring Group, who's going to provide us with an update, the actuary's quarterly update.
Hi there, and I'm going to share my screen right now. Hopefully y'all can hear me okay. Different location than I'm usually at. All right. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. All right. So the purpose of this part of the presentation is to just go through the quarterly experience. In this case, we are presenting third quarter experience. So it's the period July 2022 through March 2023. Just flip through to this. So this page provides a summary of the results. The first column here shows the actual results, and then the second column provides the last financial projection that we provided, and sort of the corresponding quarterly results for the period July through March. And that was presented back in January, so about 3 months ago. So overall, our starting position is the fund balance of $446.3 million. This is as of June 30th, 2022. And then over the last 9 months, we showed the net activity on the third base. Actual contributed contributions were $330.5 million, a little higher than what we had in the prior financial projection. Investment income is also slightly higher, and then incurred claims a little lower, so $218.6 million, lower than the $236.3. And it's not necessarily that it's unexpected. It is somewhat expected. We do have conservatism built into our financial projections by design. So being lower claims is not unexpected from that standpoint. And then other expenses are fairly in line at around 33. So overall net activity is 90 million positive. So that increases the fund balance. So we're up from 446.3 million, 536.4 million. So this compares to the prior financial projection where we would have expected to get 515 million. So based on these results, the fund balance remains strong. The funding metrics are all within the target levels that have been set. So I just wanted to set that out there as well. So this is the summary of the result. Next page provides the results graphical basis. So you can see the same results, the starting fund balance, the ending fund balance, and then sort of the revenue piece that increases the fund balance, as well as the expenses, primarily the claims that reduces it. So both what we had actual and as well as the last projection illustrated. It's the same numbers that I just spoke about. This page provides the detail. I had not intended to spend any time here, but I have to answer questions, so I'll go through it more detail if you'd like. And then the other item here, that really the secondary item that we do present on, is the full year projection. So this is a reflection of the actual results to date plus projection for the next 3 months. So overall, we are anticipating net activity at the updated net activity amount of about 104 million, which compares to roughly 80 million that we had previously. So the current projection shows a fund balance, net fund balance of 550 million, which again is reflective of the most recent experience. Yeah, so that is really it in terms of the presentation of these specific results. I would open it up for questions at this point.
I have some questions if that's appropriate. Can you go back to any one of the financial screens, particularly this one here? Go back one more.
This one?
Nope, other way. I'm sorry. That one right here.
The-
So if I'm
this one?
nope, that one right there. Stop.
Yes.
So if I'm reading this correctly, we're ahead of our income is ahead of projections, and our fund balance is also ahead of projections because claims are lower than projection.
That's correct. Yes. Yes.
From an actuarial standpoint, if you extrapolated this out for the rest of the year, would you say that we're going to be, our claims are going to be lower and our income is going to be higher for the remainder of the year? Is that
Yes, for the
something that can be
remaining 3
extrapolated?
months, we should be, because a part of it is we do have inherently some conservatism built into the projection.
Okay.
So unless something goes wrong, and that's one of the reasons we do have some conservatism built in to account for potentially things going worse than we really expect, right?
Well, what could possibly be worse? I mean, what is something that is on your radar that could possibly make this a worse scenario when it comes to claims?
Okay.
Or
So from a claim standpoint, you could have more births, right? More people taking leave for various reasons. That could be one reason. Another could be illness. So, we did see the pandemic, but something else, right, that could cause people to want to take time off. Potentially also, if the economy becomes worse, and there are more layoffs, let's say, you could have the effect of that, I'll call it anti-selection, if you will, so people opting as best they can to try to take leave and get some sort of income through this program. So those could be some of the reasons. And similarly on the contribution side, it's also less contributions. Let's say if people are laid off and not making contributions. So there are potentially areas where certainly unexpected, as we saw with COVID pandemic as an example,
right.
Areas where there could be worse experience. And the other piece is because it was a newer program, we were also being conservative because we didn't actually have experience to lean on heavily from the state. So we were leaning on other state experience, and also kind of assuming that there will be some ramp up into the next year and so on as well. We'll be doing a bit more of a deep dive into some of those assumptions as part of the annual work that we do, and presenting that about a quarter or so.
So, one thing that I've always been concerned of, and I always ping on this, and I'm sure Aaron's going to want to crawl under a desk when I say this, but we've extracted $536 million from the Connecticut economy, and we're just kind of sitting on it, and that bothers me. And I remember when we were first starting this off and looking at the private plans, a lot of those private plans were charging rates half, or at least less than what we're charging. And I've said this before, but I think we need to be looking at, should we be reducing the levy? And could we see, in these reports that you're doing, what happens if we reduce it from 0.5 rather to 0.25, cut that in half? What would it do to our claims versus putting money in our reserves? I think we need to start having those conversations. I think we owe it to the taxpayers, because this feels like a lot of money missing from the Connecticut economy.
So, John, I absolutely hear what you're saying, and I'm not surprised that you're saying it. I think, so technically by statute, the board basically makes the decision about the contribution rate in the fall. There's sort of a one-time per year decision. I would say, however, we're still pretty green. We have been seeing claims at about 7,500 a month. And that's been consistent since, I would say, March of 2022. We're not 100% certain that that's not going to go up. It seems likely that it should go up as we continue our outreach and as people become more used to the program, we would expect that to go up. We also are running at about a 70% acceptance rate. And if you look at other states, that is likely to go up as well. Again, as people become more savvy about the program, as the effects of the system changes we've put in so that people understand what documents they have to provide, we are seeing sort of higher or fewer people being denied because they're not providing the documents, which, as you know, is like the number one reason people get denied. So while I hear what you're saying, and while we certainly want to be careful about not taking too much, we also know that it's a whole lot easier to reduce a contribution than it is to increase it again. So you just want to be really careful about making sure we have a good foundation in the data and in terms of trends before we pull that trigger.
So do we have any information? It's been more than a year now. So do we have any information from the private plans? Have they been adjusting rates upwards or downwards? Do we track any of that stuff?
So they're not allowed to. They have, so let me put it this way. What we know is what they charge their employees, and they're not allowed to change what they charge their employees without filing with us again. You are right that some charge less than 0.5%. Of the ones that charge less than 0.5%, many of them are like 0.47, 0.485, so it's not exactly a whole lot. And some just made the decision that they're just going to cover it. So it's not necessarily a reflection of the cost of the plan as much as it is what they decided to do. We are collecting the private plan annual reports now. We've got a better return rate than we did last year, but it's still not fabulous. But the other big source of information, I think, for us, John, will be that first tranche of private plans, their 3-year approval ends as of January 1st. So we actually will be sending out communications in June to say, hey, you 300 some odd plans, you have to let us know if you're coming to us, if you're going to renew, and if you're going to renew, you have to get that done before December 1st. So I think that's going to be a really interesting indicator of who's staying with a private plan and if they're going to change the rates that they're charging their employees. But they can't charge it outside of that time frame without letting us know and filing again.
Yeah, I recognize the filing process. I'm just wondering what we've seen, if anything. I guess back to my earlier question: is it possible for us to see studies like this that says, what if we reduced it to 0.4 or 0.25 or something like that? What would the impact be on our finances? Is that something that's been contemplated in these reports?
It's not a part of the quarterlies, but we can certainly work with Spring to do some of those thought experiences. So, right. So we have a couple different deliverables with Spring. Okay. They're the quarterly and annual reports, and then there's sort of the other. So we can absolutely put this on the list of other analysis that can be done.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you.
Any other questions? Don't see any. Thank you very
I'm sorry.
much.
I'm
Oh.
sorry, Emily. I had a
Oh,
hard
that's
time
okay.
coming off of mute. Just I guess, a consideration as we're looking at this. So last week we had, or was it this week? The Treasurer's Office had its investor conference, and the Commissioner of Economic and Community Development provided a presentation. And one of the things that she highlighted was that the state still hasn't recovered from its pre-pandemic workforce. And so as I think about, whether we need to lower the contribution rate, I think about as we get back to our full complement of workforce, yes, that'll be more money coming in, but it also increases the number of folks who could potentially apply for claims. So that's just another consideration I wanted to throw out there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions this morning? All right, not seeing any. Thank you very much for your presentation this morning. And we're going to move on to Dave and the update on the budget review of spending to date.
Okay, thank you, Holly, and good morning, everybody. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go over the results for the month of April.
You can see your screen, Dave.
Thank you for the confirmation, Stephanie. Okay, so for the month of April, our expenditures were $610,000. That is a bit on the lighter side. The major expenditures for the month were salaries and related expenses of $516,000, software licenses of almost $37,000, and some IT consulting services of $28,000. The reason why the expenses are on the lighter side is because, number one, we paid 2 months worth of our United Way bill in March. We paid the second one on March 31st instead of April 1. So we didn't have that monthly expense here. The other reason is during the month of April, we froze spending for a week because we were converting to Bill.com directly, because previous to that, we were using it via Bank of America. Bank of America has discontinued using the Bill.com platform, so we went on to the Bill.com platform directly. But in order to do that, we had a freeze spending for a week and convert the data from one to the other, which we did successfully. So in the beginning of May, we paid all the expenses that normally would have been paid during April. So we caught up with that. And you'll see that next month. You'll also see on here that we have a negative variance for income less expenses of $4.4 million. I don't want anyone to be alarmed by that, but that's actually a good news reason, and we actually touched on this at last month's meeting. Typically, the first month of the quarter, we transfer $5 million for the CTPL administration fee, which is recorded as revenue. We determined we did not need to record the fee from the contribution fund to operating reserves because we had enough cash in operating reserves to cover us for this quarter. And I'll show that when we get to the balance sheet. So that's the reason why we didn't transfer the administration fee. We didn't need it. But that's why there is this variance below. But I don't want anyone to think that somehow there wasn't revenue for the operating budget. We just didn't need it because we had enough money in the reserves. For year to date, our spending has been $8.9 million, and we are $5.6 million ahead of budget there. And And again, so because we are ahead of budget, that's why we didn't transfer the admin fee. Moving on to our bond account, we spent over $279,000 in bond money, mostly on the fund recovery project and also on the website redesign and replatform. We were slightly over budget by $54,000 for the month, but that was expected, as when we budgeted this, we had budgeted the expenditures to be spent in the earlier part of the fiscal year. The timing didn't happen that way. It was more spread out as the year went on. So that explains the negative variance. Having said that, year to date, we spent over $1.5 million, but we are $3.7 million ahead of spending for the bond budget thus far. And in terms of where we are in terms of bond money, we've spent over $12.7 million so far of the $16 million allocated, and we still have over $3.2 million remaining of bond money that is available, excuse me, to the authority. Moving on to the contribution account. The net activity for the contribution account was over $106 million. That was better than budget by $40 million. And there were a few drivers of why we were better than budget. $13 million of that variance was because of benefits paid. As Harindra had mentioned before, he mentioned it, his projection was conservative. Our budget certainly was conservative when we did this over a year ago. And so that's why we're better than budget now. Our run rate right now is roughly about a little over $6 million a week in terms of benefits paid. We've been seeing that about the past month or two, although we did see a slight spike up in May so far. We actually, 1 week we paid out over $6.4 million, which was a weekly record high in terms of benefits paid. So will that be a trend? Well, we only saw it for 1 week, but we'll see what happens, and we're going to monitor that. The other major positive variance for contribution was contributions. We got in over $130 million for the month. The first quarter contributions are due a month after the calendar month. So that's when most of the money comes in, because most of the employers and their third-party payroll providers like to wait to the last possible moment to pay. So that's when the bulk of the money comes in. We did budget conservatively, so that's why we're $18 million over. We are about $3 million less than what we budgeted for the year. For this month, we certainly was better than expected. I'm going to move away from this page for a second, because I just want to show everybody how the contributions for the latest quarter relate to prior years. The gray bar you see on the left are the contributions for the first quarter of 2023. And so you could see that over the past 3 years we've been doing this, there's been an increase. So we'll see how that trends out for the rest of the year. But typically, as you can see, the first quarter is usually the best quarter in terms of getting contributions. And that's usually because bonuses and those items are paid out during the first quarter. Pay increases are usually instituted for a lot of companies the first quarter. And so that's why the first quarter typically has the highest contributions for the year. But moving back on to why we were better than budget, the other two pieces of that were investment income were better than budget. The short-term investment fund is currently earning north of 4.5% now. And as I mentioned before, we're better than budget by $5 million because we didn't need to transfer the administrative fee from the contribution account to the operating account. And so that explains the positive variance. Year to date through April, the net activity has been over $171.5 million, resulting in a better than budget amount of over $150 million. Again, the largest drivers of that are benefits paid being the largest one, because the benefits being paid out are less than the conservative budget we had. And the other significant pieces are the admin fee we didn't pay and the investment income. Same reasons as the monthly variance. Where does that leave the contribution account at the end of April? We have over $554 million in the fund balance, and the biggest drivers of that have been contribution revenue coming in from inception to date of over $954 million, and the benefits paid out of over $344 million since inception to date. Benefits were paid out in 22, and contributions started coming in 2021, just as a reminder of the timing. Looking at the balance sheet, we have assets of over $577 million. The largest piece of that continues to be the short-term investment fund at $446 million. I did want to point out that in our operating reserves, we do have over $13 million in there as of the end of April. And that was one of the factors that we considered of why we didn't transfer the administration fee of $5 million, because we didn't think we were going to need it for the current quarter, because we had enough in there already to cover the expenses for the quarter. Moving on to where we think we'll be by the end of the year. In terms of operations, we think the operating expenses will be over $12 million. That's over a $4.8 million positive variance. The major drivers of that positive variance continue to be staffing. That was the largest one, because we started positions later than had been budgeted, and we still have some positions that are open that haven't been filled yet. Also, we spent less in IT consulting, outside IT consulting expenses, because we didn't need them, because we were able to handle things internally. So that was the other large driver of the positive variance. Again, you do see that income less expenses. There's a negative variance of $113 million. But again, that's because we're not intending to transfer the $5 million for the fourth quarter. So that's why the fee is $5 million less than what we budgeted. But again, that's actually because we have the money sitting in the cash reserves, so we don't need to do that. In terms of the contribution budget, we expect the net activity to be over $88 million by the end of the year. That is a positive variance of $143 million. And again, the largest drivers of that variance are the benefits paid being less than budget, the investment income being better than budget because of the higher interest rate, and the $5 million positive variance because of the administrative fee. So that's where we are for the month of April. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Well, I actually have one just quick question.
Oh, yes, Holly, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I was going to wait to see if anybody had something prior to me speaking up. The positions that are open, are they in active recruitment?
Yes, they are IT positions. And so if you've ever been recruiting for IT positions, you know they're pretty challenging to fill. So we also have found that challenge. But they are open. We are trying to fill them. I know we just filled one recently. So as soon as we can fill them, we'll certainly let everybody know.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Okay,
Are there
sure.
any other questions? Okay, not seeing any. Thank you, Dave.
You're
We're
welcome.
going to move on to our fund recovery update from Jennifer and Walter this morning.
Thank you very much, Holly. Pull up. Perfect. Okay, so this is what is happening in the world of fund recovery. We sent out a little over 7,000 mailers to employers who were registered in our system as of December 31st, 2022. However, hadn't remitted any contribution reporting since their initial registration. This outreach did have a response rate of 29%, which resulted in a lot of the employers responding to our finance managed queue. From this outreach, we had 784 employers remit contributions to us totaling $286,000. We also had 192 employers who reported or filed a zero statement to us. We also were able to identify from this outreach 1,064 ineligible accounts that were registered in error as they didn't meet the requirements to participate in our Connecticut Paid Leave program. If we move to our next slide, we go into a little further detail on this. Looking at the graph on the left, this is going to give the specific reasons for what we identified for the account closure reasons. This could have been due to a business registration that didn't have any covered Connecticut employees, could have been due to a closed business. We found several TPAs were creating accounts to remit payments on behalf of their clients, as well as the other reasons shown there. As we said before, we did receive a little over $286,000 in contributions, as we can see through the graph on the right. And we did break that down by reporting quarter and year. All that you see here is what has come in from the February 2023 outreach. And then with tremendous support from Jessica Vargas on our outreach and engagement team, we continue to expand our reach out efforts further into 2023. Ahead of setting out our notices, we wanted to provide some potential non-compliant employers one last opportunity to comply before we started going further down that path. So far, since 2020, our 2023 outreach campaign started, we've registered 6,847 new accounts. And out of that number, we received 2023 reporting and payments for 4,285 of these. We also identified 813 employers that also filed zero returns for 2023. Going further into our reporting, we also did find that 914 of these accounts also provided us reporting for prior periods where they would have been considered non-compliant. And the amount that we received for that was a little over $660,000. From our 2023 outreaches alone, so far, we have collected $1.78 million on the new accounts that have registered, as well as from our previous non-compliance due to our fund recovery efforts. And Walter will go over what we're doing next.
Thank you, Jen. So a lot of our outreach so far has been really manual. The next thing that we're going to do is introduce our automated process. So in June, we'll be kicking off our automated program to assist in the collection. This system will collect data from our system to see who has not remitted either a contribution payment or a quarterly return to us. In turn, it will generate a notice reflecting penalty and interest, if applicable. And this will be a further enhancement to our manual outreach efforts so far. We've created a case management queue for our finance team. We've got our team working in there based on our previous outreaches. This will provide a mechanism for the employer to question our notices, dispute if possible, and also further update the registrations in our system so that we can either close or mark an ineligible if they have made a mistake on their initial registration. And one of those things to assist us on our response is we look to onboard 2 temp staff in June. They will be doing the clerical side of our cases. We're going to have them on board for a max of 6 months to accommodate our first 2 quarters of non-compliance notices. This is going to be our busiest time when we get a response from these employers. They'll be ensuring employers have submitted all of their backup to the case, have provided us all of the forms from that they submit to DOL or DRS to close a business. And if they have any backup to enhance a dispute that they want to have with us to prove that they did remit us the funds, so that we finance team can make more business decisions in the system. So we look to go on board with that mid-June, and we look to those fund recovery contribution numbers increasing from that response as we hold people responsible for their obligation to the Connecticut Leave Program. We'd like to open up at this time if anyone had any questions.
I don't see any.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Walter and Jennifer, for that update this morning. And we're back to you, Dave, on the APA update, the APA audit update.
Yes, I just want to give a brief update to the committee on where we are right now. So we did receive a initial draft copy of the report from the APA. And so we reviewed it with them and we had the opportunity to respond to it. And so the next part of that is that they take that draft report with our responses to the senior management of the APA. And from there, they issue an almost final report that we have the opportunity to respond to again. And then from there, it's finalized. Because the report's not finalized yet, I can't go into any great detail as to the report, but I can tell you overall that the findings they found so far have been fairly minimal. Assuming none of that changes between now and when they issue the final report, you'll see that when it's released. And also, I just want to, as a reminder to people on the committee, the report covers the fiscal year 2020 and 2021. So it's really the first 2 years that the authority was up and around. In addition to getting a new authority up and running, we were, number one, it was a new authority. Number two, we had some pretty aggressive deadlines to meet to get everything up and running. And oh yeah, we were doing that in the midst of a pandemic and doing it remotely. But despite those challenges, we did so successfully. And so certainly there were bumps along the way, and the APA let us know of certain things that could have and should have been done. And so now that we know that, we'll certainly take that going forward. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Don't see any. All right. Well, thank you for that update, Dave. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Is there
Thank you.
any old business anybody would like to bring up this morning? Any new business? All right. I don't see any. So may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. The meeting is now adjourned and it's 9:46 a.m. I wish everybody a happy Memorial Day weekend and enjoy the beautiful weather.
You too.
You too.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.